Hey everybody, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game review. This time from our friends at Linvander Games, who've given us a copy of their new hit that's just hitting the tables for folks, Snapship Tactics. Now let me ask you, have you ever wanted to take that gummy ship that maybe you built in Kingdom Hearts, or your favorite Lego creation, and build a full tactical skirmish game with advanced rules and deep combat built around it? But you want to take that creation you made, and you want to fight with it. You want to have a skirmish battle with it. Well, that's what Snapship Tactics brings to the table. We get to build these incredibly detailed, very cool looking, larger than I thought they would be, advanced ships, multiple of them if you get expansions, and have a full space opera tactical skirmish between an opponent and yourself with a ship that you've built and customized and created from the ground up. This system is really cool. It is kind of this beautiful merger of toys and Legos and creative things that I love, and a good tactical skirmish rule set and base with advanced kind of hit and flanking mechanics and overheating systems. There's a lot packed into this game. There's a lot of replay and a lot of really cool stuff in here, so I'm super excited, if you can't tell, to get this one to the table and show you guys how to play. Really excited to showcase this one. So let's go ahead and jump in and learn how to play Snapship Tactics. Welcome to the world of Snapship Tactics, a tactical space skirmish game for 1 to 2 players. That's right, there's a solo mode as well that will allow you to build this plethora of options of automated ships that will fight against you as an AI. So you're actually able to play this game by yourself. But in its pure sense, this is a 2-player game where you and an opponent will go head-to-head with a singular ship, as you see here in the base game, or with expansions, multiple ships, leading a squadron of vessels fighting and skirmishing against each other with mechanics and systems similar to something you might have seen in a game like Star Wars X-Wing, where you'll be utilizing advanced turning maneuvers and range indicators to have direct line of sight to target and attack specific systems on your ship. Now, the really, really awesome thing about Snapship Tactics, the thing that sets it apart to me, is the building of your ship. And you can see these are pretty large-scale vessels, and they come with like these individual little cubes that you'll fuse together, kind of like the Kingdom Hearts gummy ship build if you ever played that classic game. You'll be able to build and modify your ship pretty much as you see fit. Now, in the core game, you'll actually come with 4 particular pre-builds that you can utilize if you're not feeling particularly confident or decisive or creative that day. You can use these pre-built models to give you a particular playstyle that fits exactly what you want to do. But you can also actually draft your ship from one of the core models here, which gives you your health, your starting evasion, as well as a passive ability. And then you can actually build the ship however you want. You can pick and choose the particular model of weapons and cockpits and thrusters and mods that you want on your vessel, and you can build it to your liking. So there's a lot of fun Lego-esque creativity that comes into this game and offers just an amazing amount of creativity from that perspective alone. There's a lot of bang for your buck here. Then also, of course, you'll engage in a quality, deep skirmish tactics game. So this is a creative, fun toy almost, in that sense of build your own ship, make this awesome, cool, creative thing, but it's paired perfectly with a wonderful depth of skirmish game tactics. This game has solid skirmish tactics built into it and a lot of cool tools. You'll notice some of those tools right here. The map is actually going to be pre-built or agreed upon from a pre-render each and every time you play, utilizing terrain like nebulae, asteroid fields, or debris fields that will come from even destroyed ships. You can add actual new debris to the map as you go. And you'll be moving your ship and navigating through this terrain, trying to get the edge on your opponent. Now, you'll notice you have this cool little tool here, and we'll take a look at this more in detail in a second, but it's actually going to determine the range that your ship moves, whether little short increments or even, in this case, a long increment movement. You can kind of move your ship in those increments as you go. You also use this tool to determine how you rotate your ship. You'll rotate it 1 click in either direction, however you want to rotate, and that's how you'll actually move your ship around. You also have these range indicators that show how far your ship's weapons can fire, and that's how you'll determine if you're able to attack your opponent. You also have access to this dice pool. This dice pool will determine how you hit. You're trying to exceed your opponent's evasion rating, which is the green number indicated on their ship die there, and you'll try to get hits or even critical hits to damage their systems. Speaking of systems, as you'll notice, we have a set of cards here. These are the pre-built models recommended for the first game that you play, but you'll have systems here that range from weapons to cockpits to engines and mods, and all of them have use options. They're things that you can do on your turn to utilize overheat cubes, so these energy cubes and heat cubes, where you'll be placing them on these particular items to try and utilize them, attack with them, maneuver with them to, again, get that edge on your opponent. Doing so will add these cubes actually to your devices as you use particular abilities on them. Every turn, you're able to cool down a set number of these cubes based on your particular cockpit frame, your core that you've decided to use. In this case, this Scarab Claw here can cool down 5 cubes of your choice, red or blue. So in this case, I could choose to remove these cubes to cool down that weapon and be able to use it again. Moving into certain terrain can actually allow you to cool down more units. Having damage systems, once these flip over, there could be damage systems that may cost you additional cubes, or you may need to do specific things to try and repair those items so that they're operational and usable again. So there's a lot of cool decision making that you'll be doing throughout the game as you try to use your items in your build to get the advantage on your opponent. All of this, of course, leads to the idea that you need to deplete your opponent's health. We have a range of health, again, based on your core, and you'll be using that to try and deplete your opponent's health first, and whoever is the last ship standing is the victor. Now, because this is a skirmish game, there are a lot of advanced rules that are well laid out with examples and illustrations in the rulebook. I'm not going to get super in the weeds on that. I'm just going to do a general overview of what you'll be doing throughout the game and leave you to discover some of the kind of minutia of all the rules and counter rules as you explore this game for yourself. But needless to say, the rulebook is well done and has a lot of great examples and illustrations for every aspect of this game, so I was very pleased with that as well. But with that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look at a specific ship build and what you can expect as you go to develop your fighter within a game of Snapship Tactics. All right. Here we have an example of a full-built starting ship and its gear, as well as an example of the other ship options that come in the core game of Snapship Tactics. So this Scarab here, the Claw, is what we had built in the illustration before the ship that you saw, but these are the other options that you have if you want to build things. You'll notice they have a little bit of asymmetry to them, some various amounts of evasion or particular builds and passives that they can have, but for the most part, the core ships in the main game are going to be pretty similar. The really wild differences will come from when you build your custom ship or when you start getting those expansions. Some of the expansion ships seem to be very diverse and different, but we'll notice here that all of the ships in this Scarab faction have a starting health of 13. That's their ship size of 4, and their starting energy cubes, as well as their evasion number, that green arrow, how many cubes they're able to vent or cool in a particular round, and their base movement abilities. On the other side here, you'll notice the gear that we have for this build. Now, every card on the back is going to show you the pre-build options. It shows you how to build the frame with those gummy ship-like little cubes, and then the gear that you would particularly start with. Now, again, if you feel confident and you've played the game before and want to start doing your own thing, you can certainly build this core and add any of the 6 items that you want. You'll see it just has to have a cockpit, a thruster, wings, and then 3 mods, utility items, whatever you want it to be. So you can build this yourself if you so choose, but this is the pre-built example here that's supposed to have a balance of speed and maneuverability and utility and all the things, just to keep it as a good learning game. So again, I mentioned this before, but you'll know that you start with a certain amount of energy cubes, in this case 7. That's these blue cubes. They allow us to activate things. Now, as we choose to activate these items, some of them have multiple options. You choose 1 per turn, and you'll put that many cubes onto that particular item. If you choose to use something that adds red cubes, you'll pull the red cubes from the supply and add them to this device as well. And when an item has cubes on it, you cannot utilize that item anymore. So once an item has cubes, unless you're able to vent those cubes at the end of your turn, you will not be able to use that item again until you've successfully removed all the cubes from it. So this, as you can see, is kind of where the fun of this game comes into play and the tactical aspects of it, where you're trying to choose, like, how do I maximize my turn efficiency by utilizing these items at the proper time to get the most impact, but how do I manage my cube intake as well? Because I can only pull, in this case, 5 cubes normally off of these items per turn. So I better choose and pick and choose like how I'm able to get in position to maximize my efficiency on a turn. So this is what you'll be doing throughout the game. As you do hits, you'll notice, for instance, the Gatling gun, it shows the amount of dice that they roll and what they hit on here, plus the evasion value, so 2 plus whatever the evasion value of the target is. So let's say they had an evasion value of 2. That would mean my dice would hit on 4s and up. So you'd roll these dice looking for 4s and up, or potentially a critical hit. Every hit that you get is going to reduce the enemy ship's health by 1 hit, and also if you get a critical hit, you may damage one of their parts. So you'll roll a die to see the value that you'll roll, and if you roll a corresponding value, that particular item is going to be damaged, which means you can't utilize it any further until you pay 2, in this case 2 blue cubes, to repair this card and flip it back over. So of course then you'll have to vent the 2 cubes you put on that card to repair that particular item. So there's a lot of value, of course, in getting critical hits because you're not only dealing damage, but you're slowing down your opponent's ability to utilize their items and get the edge on you. So stacking critical hits can be massively advantageous in this game. So this is how you'll be building your particular ship. Again, the different factions have very different feels. This faction focuses on actually crashing into you with these blade wings, doing melee damage as they attack you physically with their ship, as well as having a very strong front salvo. Something else to mention, you'll notice the weapons have range increments of 1, 2, 3, or 4. That's going to show you how far those particular weapons can hit. Remember, that's going to be utilizing these range indicators like here, where you'll be actually building out a range track based on the range that that weapon can shoot, as well as the firing cone. You'll notice this laser has a very limited cone, which means that it will be attacking just in a straight line from where your ship faces. The Gatling gun seems to have a wider range, and that's indicated by the attack ring on your ship, which we'll take a look at here in just a moment. So with that said, let's take a look at your ship, the ring on your ship, and talk about how you maneuver and move your ship around the board. Here we have a look at the initial Sabre class build, the XF-23 fighter. This is, again, that starting ship that's kind of recommended as you get into your first game of Snapship Tactics. And so this is another build. This particular faction, I really like this faction. They utilize missile pods. That's these little guys up here. And they'll actually physically fire tokens out onto the board like this that will track your movement and have their own move speed and will actually try to hunt you down. And so you have to, as the opponent, there's some anti-missile barrages you can do, or you'll have to try and physically dodge these items as they come after you and pursue your vessel. And so those are some really fun mechanics as well, that you really feel hunted by those missiles. And there's some real pros and cons to having that. You can kind of set them up for flanking maneuvers or use them to pressure an opponent. So I love the missiles. Anyway, so here is the ship, and so what I wanted to show you here at this view is the little dial here, and you'll see that we have this dial. This has your firing arc, so again, your initial kind of tight range firing arc, a railgun range, which is just directly ahead, and then arcs as you go out from there. Different weapons will have different firing arcs, and that'll show you how you could determine line of sight. And again, line of sight, from there, you'll take this particular range finder and you'll mark it based on the firing arc to see if it touches the base of the enemy ship. If it does, it's within your arc and firing range. Of course, line of sight would be blocked by certain terrain that can come up, such as nebulas or asteroid fields. So if, for instance, an asteroid field dropped in front of your play, this would block your line of sight for determining ways to fire. Missiles can't get through here, obviously, because they're blocked by this particular terrain. There's other types of terrain that you can use, such as a nebula that could come into play. This will actually let you cool an additional cube when you're inside the nebula, and can also block your line of sight as you fire. Now, the other interesting things of course that we're familiar with and love about skirmish games is all the movement and positioning is very tactical and important. So that is taken care of in this game with the use of this handy dandy little tool. So this is how you determine your movement and your rotation. So if I need to move a short range, what I would do is, this is a short move. I'll set this in front of me and I'll actually pick up and place my circle in front of that little die. That's a short move. Again, alternately, if I want to take a long move, I would put the long movement piece in, hold it down, and move this guy up that far. And that's how you actually determine your movement around the board. If you need to rotate, all of your rotations are done in clicks. Same thing, I would hold up, let's say in this case, this particular long movement piece here, and I can actually rotate it 1 click over to the short movement, and that is a rotation on my ship. So all of your movement is very key on how you're positioning your ship, because if you're ever flanked, you'll notice in the back here, we have a plus damage sign there, which means if I'm shot in that final firing arc, the back end of my ship, I'm actually going to take an additional damage plus whatever damage I would normally take. And so getting around and positioning around your opponent can be very key to getting that edge and defeating your opponent, because of course health is very close and evasion is very close, so making sure you get those extra hits in from flanking can be the key between victory and defeat. And that is everything that you need to know to jump in and have a really good time with Snapship Tactics. I was really excited when we were asked to review this particular game, as I loved the idea of merging building a toy, this Lego creative thing, with really good skirmish rules. Speaking of rules, I know I said I was kind of glazing over it. There's a lot of rules in here. This guy is a solid rule book. You're looking at 35 plus pages here alone of guides on how to do everything. There's rules for collisions and hardcover and softcover and combat and dice and critical hits, and there's a lot in here. So don't think that the skirmish is light as far as the rules go. It's got a good rule set. There's also rules in here for utilizing the AI ships. There's a list of scenarios in here that you can actually play. So there's different play styles. There's Beacon Rush, where you'll set these little beacon tokens out on the map, and you have to actually get to them and touch them first, and whoever gets the most beacons wins. There's different play styles, play types. There's pre-built arenas and maps and all kinds of things. There's a lot of good stuff in here that will bring you coming back for more and more and more. And of course, that's just the replayability in the core set. That's just with one ship each, a lot of different builds for that ship, and all these different rules. Now, factor in that there's a ton of extra packs for new factions, new ships for existing factions. There's a lot you can do. You could have different entire factions that play different, like these little rule books that kind of walk you through all those things. There's a way that you can have multiple ships. So again, you can have squadrons fighting each other, which gets way more advanced, more time, but more advanced. There's a lot of fun that you can have with this game, and I was just really pleased with everything that came to it. I was not expecting the ships to be as big and robust and fun to build and play with as they are. The cockpit even literally has a little toy like pilot that you put in it. And so this just felt like the perfect merge of games that I kind of played as a kid, where I would build these wonderful ships and inventions and things and have them battle in my head. And they just put a solid rule set behind that. And so this was kind of the revitalization of some childhood joy for me. And I love what they've done with it. The skirmish rules are good. They're not so advanced that you need a rulebook Warhammer style to check the weather to do something, but they are deep enough that this doesn't feel like a light game. There is a lot of tactics and strategy to this game. And the fun of it, of course, is in bringing your build to life, building the exact fighter that you want to have and putting it into this world and seeing how it shapes up against your opponents. So there's a lot of really fun things to have brought to life in this game, and I'm really excited to see all the expansions and new content, because I haven't got to try that out yet. But the core game has just a ton of replayability with all these modifiable, movable parts and ways that you can build your custom ship. So I had a blast with this, so excited to get this one to the table, and I hope it gave you guys a good insight on what this game looks like, how it works and functions, and if it's something you want to add to your collection as well. If you're looking for something that, again, just taps into that childlike joy of creating something and battling it out with your friends, Snapship Tactics is sure to go to the top of your list. It is not going to disappoint. Had an absolutely awesome time playing with this, as again, it just merges that toy with that skirmish game feel just so well. Really cool, really unique. I think it stands out well in the industry, and I'm excited to see what else this company brings to the table. So I want to thank you guys for checking out this review. I hope it was informative and fun and engaging. And if you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe, hit the bell to see when we put out new content. We're trying to put out content all the time. We just love board games and love putting new content into the field with things that we love. So I hope you guys will continue to stick around with us as we continue to develop our content model. So with that said, I hope that you guys enjoy this and will continue to come to Meeple Mountain for all of your board gaming needs. And as always, happy gaming.
Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these links to find some other games you might want to bring to the table. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.